Imagine you wake up one morning and everything looks exactly the same. The coffee is hot, the traffic is loud, your phone buzzes with notifications. Nothing has changed except for one small fact that someone just announced to the world no human being will ever be conceived again. The last one was you. You are the final human to ever be born. Think about what that means for a second. Not the end of the world, not a catastrophe, just a quiet, invisible line drawn across the calendar of your species. You crossed it, and nobody else ever will. This is not science fiction. Scientists and philosophers have been seriously modeling this exact scenario for decades, and what they found about what it would do to human civilization and to the individual human mind is far stranger than you might expect. Let's start with the biology. Your body, right now, carries the full genetic legacy of roughly 300,000 years of Homo sapiens. Every immune system trick, every hormonal rhythm, every flaw and brilliance in your DNA, it is the accumulated output of approximately 15 billion individual human lives. Evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins described your genes as selfish replicators, structures whose entire purpose, at the most fundamental level, is to copy themselves forward. They have been doing that without interruption for longer than your brain can meaningfully imagine. If you are the last, they stop right here, in you. Your ancestors survived ice ages. They crossed land bridges that no longer exist. They buried their dead and painted their caves and whispered to gods who had no name yet. Every single one of them successfully passed something forward until the chain reaches you and ends. That is not a metaphor. That is just biology, and it changes something deep in the way you would experience being alive. Psychologists who study existential awareness, particularly Sheldon Solomon, Jeff Greenberg, and Tom Pyszczynski, the researchers behind terror management theory, found that human beings build their entire sense of meaning around symbolic immortality, not literal survival, symbolic continuation. You feel meaningful because something of you will persist: your children, your culture, your ideas, your legacy. Strip that away, and something ancient in the brain starts to destabilize. Now multiply that by 8 billion people. Every person alive would suddenly know that no child would ever be born to carry anything forward, no grandchildren, no distant descendants who might read your name in a history file, or inherit your nose, or laugh the way your mother laughed. The species would know, for the first time in its existence, that it was not building toward anything. Philosopher David Benatar has written that much of what humans call meaning is really just the assumption of continuation. Remove the continuation, and you don't just lose the future, you retroactively change how the past feels. Every monument built, every book written, every empire raised, it was all, in some unconscious way, addressed to someone who was supposed to come later. What happens when there is no one coming later? The answer, according to historian Yuval Noah Harari, is that human civilization is largely a story told between strangers who agree to believe in it together. Nations, money, religion, justice. These are shared fictions, not lies, but collective agreements that only work as long as enough people believe in them and pass the belief forward. The last generation would face a question no generation has ever had to seriously answer: why keep the story going? And here is where it gets strange. Because the honest answer, the scientific, evolutionary, biological answer, is that there is no external reason. There never was. Meaning was always something your species chose to construct. The ancient Mesopotamians who built the first cities were not following instructions from the universe. They were filling a need that evolution had placed inside them: the drive to build, to cooperate, to extend themselves beyond their own lifetimes. Your brain is the same brain. It was shaped by the same pressures. The need to matter did not come from the belief that the universe cared. It came from 300,000 years of humans who survived because they acted like it did. So, what would actually happen practically if humanity knew it was the last generation? Some researchers predict collapse. The demographic and economic models are not encouraging. Economies are built on growth projections. Social security systems assume younger workers will fund older retirees. Infrastructure requires maintenance that is only worth doing if someone will use it next century. Without future humans, the rational actor models start producing deeply irrational looking behavior because the entire framework of rational planning assumes a future to plan for. But there is another possibility that the models also surface. And it is more interesting. Some humans, knowing they were the last, might experience something like the deepest freedom their species has ever felt. If nothing you do will outlast you, not your reputation, not your legacy, not even the memory of your name. then you are left with only the present. The anxiety of building a life that matters dissolves. The competition for status becomes absurd. The fear of failure loses most of its teeth. What remains is something very close to what the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius was reaching for when he wrote almost 2,000 years ago that the only thing worth doing is acting well in the moment you are in, because the future was never yours to keep anyway. What remains is the actual experience of being alive. Psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps and built an entire school of thought around the question of meaning under impossible conditions, argued that meaning cannot be given. It can only be found, and it is found in three places: in what you create, in what you experience, and in the attitude you choose when facing suffering you cannot change. If you were the last human born, you would still have all three. You could still create something beautiful. You could still love someone completely. You could still choose every single morning what kind of person to be in the time that remained. The universe was never going to remember your name. It doesn't have the capacity to. Stars don't keep records. The last humans and the first humans share this exact same condition. They live, they experience, and eventually they are gone. The difference is only in the knowing. You carry 300,000 years of biological drive that was built for a future that, in this scenario, will not arrive. And yet here you are, awake, thinking, feeling the weight of a morning that is just a morning. Maybe that is the most honest version of what it has always been. When the coffee cools and the traffic thins and the last notification fades, it was never the future that made it real. It was always just this, the moment you were in, the only one any human has ever actually had. Tonight, when the sun goes down on a world that is still, in every way that matters, fully alive, you are not the end of something. You are what 15 billion human lives were quietly building toward, someone who knows what it means to be here at all.